Hi.
Hi.
First time I saw Dan on the red carpet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Nice to see you.
Now, I'm really excited by this film, especially the fact that it's not just a but one that
Yes. Yes.
How do you, as a photographer, approach both that time and then a very unique situation in that?
Very good question. I would start by saying very delicately. You kind of bring up some major points that Dan had talked to me about early in the film, about not romanticizing the 50s so that you feel disconnected, that you feel like if you were living in the 50s, this is how it would feel to not be able to express yourself. So I think that at the core of the film is really important because you can easily be distanced from it. So as far as the cinematography was concerned, it's more of a challenge because it's so much easier to say, okay, the 50s, how do we remember it? An old photograph that's degraded. We wanted to go actually quite opposite. You still needed to represent the period because of obviously culture and society has a very specific kind of repression to it or a very narrow box. So that was, but you couldn't romanticize it. So my goal is to kind of have like documentary photography of the time was a big influence because they're basically slices of life. Gordon Parks was a big influence that way, where his photography was immediate and very emotional. So we used a lot of photography and fine art references because what's beautiful about that, you're kind of left to distill the story. So how do you do that in a film? The film is so quiet. A lot of these kind of feelings inside happen without words, just in a glance or between Jacob and Daisy's character, that it's kind of a mandate of how the cinematography needs to be. It needs to be there at the right time, not be too imposing. So I was quite nervous about how do you strike that balance, and I hope the audience really goes along there with us and is able to kind of be there with our characters, even though they didn't exist. A lot of people didn't, a certain generation may have grown up at that time, but I think it's really important to connect today's young people with that time before we had language to describe what they were feeling. So yeah.
And then, of course, Daniel has done a lot of television.
Yes.
And fell trapped of his
Yes.
Kind of time period.
Yes.
Anything about his process of collaboration with you surprised you?
You know what? What really surprised me is his willingness to distill ideas he has and to workshop things. I mean, I've heard that Jacob has spoken about, I wasn't there but that instead of having an audition, I think I read that it was workshop of swing dancing. And to me, this idea of not letting the film this is what I've noticed and what I love is this idea of not letting the process of making a film with so many people take you away from the core feelings you're trying to create. So he had a very curious way. He wanted to know as much how I wanted to work based on what I had done. So it was a true collaboration that way, but still was able to really guide us in very kind of precise, but sometimes abstract ways and say, how do we fill this in? How do we do it? Always asking questions. So to me, it's at the end of the day, whether it's LGBTQ, whatever, it's still about people not being able to live their true lives. And that was the mandate. How do we show that and connect with them? So no, it's just a feeling we had. I thought we got along very well that way. And yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy it.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.